Tell us just a little bit about kind of what brought you to Mid-Valley Fellowship in the first place and what life was like before you came.
Yeah. So I had been addicted to pornography from the age of 12 on, and I had struggled on and off throughout that time. And so when I met Moriah, I was pretty open, and I said this is what I struggle with. I mean, I've been in countless accountability groups. I have tried to eradicate this from my life, but so I sort of told her, and then before we got married, it was not gone, and I had somebody said, like, oh, it'll go away when you get married, and I was like, oh, great. It didn't. That's why I'm here. So every time I acted out or something, I would tell Moriah, and that got harder and harder to tell her. And so then the lies started happening, the keeping it a secret, and it sort of came to a head when I confessed a bunch of stuff. And then we'd been trying to do it by ourselves. We had been trying to do this thing by ourselves.
Things basically got worse as soon as we got married, and I remember getting kind of a slap in the face with the reality of it all, and we just decided really quickly we're going to go after healing, and we're not going to have this in our marriage. And I remember telling Daniel at one point in our marriage, like, as good as our fight is against this struggle, that I never want it to be all-consuming. I never wanted to take the center, because that place belongs to Jesus alone. And the problem was that's exactly what happened. And as kind of things went along, it just became, I couldn't think of anything else besides it. Everything was about this. And so my response to that all-consuming feeling was to withdraw, and to withdraw from relationships, to isolate, to pull away from other things that we were doing, because I hate feeling like a fraud. And so I was like, we're just not gonna have relationships because we can't be real with them, and I'm not gonna do things because I'm living two lives. And so we just pulled more and more and more away. And it was really lonely. And I remember many, many times of literally being curled up in fetal position and not able to talk or move or cry. And it just was all consuming. There was nothing else besides this.
What did you guys kind of experience, or what were a couple of things that were like, hey, here's some really foundational things that were important in your journey as you walked through things at MVF?
When I came, I was sure that I was evil, and that because I was watching all these things that I was doing, and how it was affecting Moriah, all these things going on in my head and heart, and I was sure that I was evil, and I was fairly certain that the Lord was going to, I thought I was Saul. I thought he was going to leave me, which he didn't. And I was reassured of that. But some key things, I knew how to be angry. That was an emotion I was very familiar with. But at Mid-Valley, we talk a lot, I think it's been talked about a lot. We talk about our emotions there, and why our motivations for doing things, and realizing like, oh, I have a strong desire to be perfect, which is impossible. And it was driving everything. I needed to be perfect in work. Back when I was in high school, I needed to be perfect in academics, in sports, and I would get stressed out about that, and I would turn to porn, and that just carried on to work life, and just every aspect. And learning that was so huge. Like, oh, I am not Like, why do I keep turning back to this thing? And learning that there's like actual science to, I created these pathways in my brain that when I get stressed out, I turn to porn. Like, it's not just that I'm not trying hard enough. It isn't just gonna go away when you get married. Like, wow, that's a relief. Because I was just like, man, I just kind of suck. So learning that was huge. Learning why I was doing things was key. Learning how to talk about my emotions and identify them.
Like I mentioned before, there was this all-consuming aspect to this whole thing. And I think one of the biggest things that I began to realize was that like there's so much more to my marriage and to me and to my life than this struggle. This does not define everything. And I think that I was just in these murky waters and I couldn't see clearly, and all of a sudden being put into community like just gave me a new perspective. I was able to see from a higher vantage point that I wasn't able to see before. I think I began to realize there are safe people that I can be vulnerable with, and because I had just blocked myself off. I remember one time actually walking into my church and being like, oh, it just hit me. I have walls sky high and I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm just gonna float around like this and not actually connect with anyone. And so being in programs at Mid-Valley with other women who are walking the same journey as I was, I all of a sudden was like, okay, it was just this reminder that like God created us for fellowship with one another, and this is a good thing, and yeah, you can be hurt along the way, but that this actually brings healing.
I was also so afraid. I thought I was evil, and I was afraid of letting people in. And Moriah keeps talking about community, and walking in the light has been so freeing and so refreshing. It's a process. Your healing journey is a process, and we're on that process. We're in that process. Learning how to deal with my emotions was not only significant for me, but it also helped me figure out how to talk with Moriah and help her understand what was going on. And I love being married to Moriah, and the grace that she has shown throughout this is always, it blows my mind. I'm not perfect, but I've experienced a significant amount of time of sobriety, and I would say my relapse looks different, but I'm realizing that there are other coping mechanisms that I can just as easily latch on to as pornography, and still dealing with those. But we have a son now that we didn't have when we started. I look at him every day and I think I'm just extremely thankful for the Lord's grace and his blessing, because we didn't want to start a family sort of in the throat when we were really in that. I didn't really want to. I don't know. I see him and I'm just reminded of the Lord's blessing, the Lord's grace on my life and our lives. And the other thing is I'm so excited to help him understand his feelings and what healthy sexuality looks like. I think I so wish I had a better understanding of that. And so I think I just look forward to helping him and our other future kids understand that.
Like Daniel mentioned, that it's a process, and we're constantly being refined. And so despite the thing of like one of the most significant things that I feel like the Lord did in me is reminding me to like open myself up to community again, that's still probably one of the hardest things for me. And it is a daily practice to do that. Like, so often when I'm in groups of people, I can feel those same tendencies coming back up again. And so it's this constant reminder to you have to lean on Jesus, because we're going to keep going back to the same things. And so leaning on him. And then I think just that whole picture of like what Daniel was saying about looking at our son and being like, that's a picture of the Lord's faithfulness. And I just think like, man, when you remember what the Lord has done, and you keep remembering, and it's just, life is just it's so beautiful. And I just have been thinking lately, man, I love loving Daniel, and it's my joy to love him, and what an honor this to be a part of this covenant, and a picture of the covenant that the Lord has made with us, with his church. Like, it is such an honor, and we get to live that out day by day. I am so thankful that the Lord, that this was our story, and that the Lord has been walking us through it, and it's a daily reminder that we need Jesus, and I need him.
I would also not trade, as much as I didn't want to see the pain I caused Moriah. I don't know that I would trade our story, because now we can help others walk through those difficult things.